Okay, we are live now, so I'll keep myself quiet.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us on our NASOM talk, a chat on raising a child with autism with Nori Abdullah Badawi. Before we start that, we would like you to view a video of NASOM.
You can try but never stop me. This is what I'm made of. I will never ever let go. This is what I'm made of. No one can control me, 'cause this is what I'm made of. You can hate but never break me. This is what I'm made of. You can try but never stop me. This is what I'm made of. I will never ever let go. This is what I'm made of. No one can control me, 'cause this is what I'm made of. You can hate but never break me. This is what I'm made of.
Maybe I don't speak too well, but I'm coming out of my shell. And I like playing by myself, if you can't tell. I like to go to school, and yeah, I'm a miracle. And I'm glad to be alive. You wait patiently, well then eventually I will understand the words.
Walaupun dah disahkan, tapi sebagai ibu bapa bukan satu yang perkara yang senang nak terima. So banyak benda yang kita kena sacrifice.
Saya tanya, kenapa anak saya lain? Rasa takut lah nanti dia dah besar macam mana, siapa nak jaga kan?
Saya sendiri sebagai mak, kadang-kadang saya pun hilang sabar. Bayangkan kalau orang luar.
Rasa cabaran yang pertama tu atuk nenek dia lah. But as time goes by, kita cuba expose lah karakteristik diorang yang lain. Saya harap orang tak cepat buat judgement. Kita kena belajar menerima cara diorang.
Diorang ni bukan tak normal, dia just different. Dia sama je macam kita. Cara pemikiran dia je kita kena faham. Inilah anak, walau macam mana pun ni yang Allah bagi, saya terima. Dia anak istimewa.
Kalau dia tak belajar dan tak diajar untuk menguasai satu-satu bidang, so dia akan terus begitu. So sampai bila pun dia takkan tahu. Kanak-kanak ini boleh dirawat melalui intervensi-intervensi yang sesuai mengikut keperluan. Chance memang banyak support autism, terutamanya NASOM, dalam penyumbangan barangan dan penyumbangan dana tunai untuk membantu orang kata NASOM beroperasi.
And I know you love me when you hug me. then I hear you pray to God.
Lukisan pun kalau yang boleh melukis, dia boleh menggambarkan apa perasaan dia melalui lukisan. Dia sedih, dia boleh lukis gambar sedih. Dia marah, dia lukis gambar marah.
They can express their feelings, they can even tell their emotion, how they feel it, and the environment, they can describe through the picture. So art is actually a talent. It's a therapy as well for them.
That won't be this way.
Saya berharap agar kempen ini berjaya dan bakat-bakat kanak-kanak autism dapat diketengahkan dan mereka juga dapat menjana pendapatan sendiri melalui lukisan-lukisan yang kita jual dan kita pamerkan.
Very good evening to everyone on our Facebook Live watching us. We just want to thank you all for coming and spending your Friday evening with us. And today we have a guest. She's none other than Puan Nori Abdullah Badawi. And she has many, many attributes. However, today we're going to speak to her as a mother and a wife. And it's been, it's end of April today, and we've been celebrating Autism Awareness Month, and it's come to an end today. But for some of you out there, Autism Awareness Month is a monthly affair, and NASOM has been working really hard around this, extra hard. Kudos to our staff, and we just want to thank our chairman, who's the producer for this event today. He's behind the scenes, ensuring that our technology works. And Puan Nori, thank you so much for being with us, and you look beautiful. And
You're very kind, Anne. Hi.
Yeah, and we really appreciate the fact that you have agreed to be one of our speakers for this, NASOM talk, and it has gotten a lot of attention. When they heard who is going to be speaking today, a mother, they said, "Oh, okay, it's Puan Nori." I said, "Yep," but she really likes to be known as a mother. So Puan Nori, you and your husband have got 3 kids, and we would really like to know more about your son Timur, also known as Puma, and we want to know why Puma, if you don't mind sharing with us.
Sure. Thank you so much, Anne. Please just call me Nori. I'm really grateful to NASOM for this opportunity. It's a new experience for me. I haven't done many of these except until this month, when Kari and I decided that it would be good to see what else we can do in terms of speaking out more for autism awareness, acceptance, appreciation, eventually inclusion, right? I'm so grateful to NASOM as a national body. I mean, my experiences personally and through my kids' gym have been great. Your former chairman, Puan Felina, is somebody I respect a lot. It's really wonderful. Your current chairman is supporting the tech, and things like that today. So I'm happy to do anything together with NASOM. So I'll get to talking about Timur. Timur or Puma. So we have, Kari and I have 3 boys. Jibril, Timur, and Rafe. Timur, our second son, who's 12, he's the one who's autistic. They all have cat nicknames. I guess it's because in our families we kind of like cats, and so the oldest one is Cougar, second one is Puma, and the little guy is Leo. Nobody's a tiger so far because we're all proud Malaysians and we figure that we're all tigers. That's how it's it's just one of those things. Macam nama glamour lah. So they're cats.
Nice. Yeah. So Nori, you were talking about cats, and you all like cats. So do you all do like animal therapy? Is cat part of your therapy? I'm just yeah.
Oh, so we have cats at home. We've got 4 cats, and in fact, we also have a little fennec fox. So there's a lot of animals in the house, and that's like the 4-legged kind, discounting us humans. I've not actually tried animal related therapy except for hippotherapy. So we've been fortunate enough to, be able to experience occupational therapy through horse riding. We've had some, wonderful people we've worked with over the years at Green Apple and things like that. As you might know, my husband is a keen rider. He also plays polo. So we have, access. We're very fortunate to be able to have the children on the horses. And Timur really enjoys riding. So we've kind of transitioned a little bit from hippotherapy to therapeutic riding. We're trying to build skills for him to eventually be able to learn how to ride. He seems to have taken to it quite well. But therapy with cats, I guess just playing with our own cats at home, although to be fair, Timur's kind of indifferent to them. He'll play occasionally, but he doesn't, it's not so much his thing. But yeah, we've been fortunate to be able to do hippotherapy. That's the connection with animals.
Right. I've heard a lot about how horses are very, very therapeutic to children, generally, regardless, and then also talking about therapy, and you're the founder of We Rock the Spectrum, and I was really privileged to actually visit it like in 2017 at the Evolve Mall, and I had a conversation with your auntie, I believe. And we also wrote an article around that place, and I was fascinated by that place because it was like I felt like a kid when I actually went there. And why the gym, Nori? I mean, why did you decide that this is something you wanted to bring back from the United States? That's a question. Like, I'm really curious why.
Okay. Thank you for that. The We Rock the Spectrum Gym for All Kids is an American franchise. We discovered it when the family was in the US, and it was this wonderful inclusive space, indoor space, like children's play space for everybody, or children irrespective of abilities, to be able to play, to learn, and to grow together. And it just seemed like an amazing thing. Actually, Kyrie found it first. And then my aunt, who you spoke to, is actually married to an American. So my uncle is American. And she used to spend her time partly in the US and then in KL. And we were talking about it because, it also happens to be that my cousin, her son, one of her sons, has ADHD. So we're both mothers of, a kid who's differently able, who's neurodiverse. My sister-in-law, Carrie's got 2 older sisters. One of his sisters, her daughter has Down syndrome. So we are a rather colorful family. And we were thinking, how awesome would it be to, maybe bring something which, it's an inclusive space, right? So I'm not actually the founder since we brought it from the US, but I am the, one of the proud owners of We Rock the Spectrum Malaysia. And we've been really, really grateful to have been able to provide the space for everybody. But the focus recently has been on helping a few families. There are 50 children, 50 autistic children from 43 families, because some of them are siblings. They come from B40 families. So with the help of Yayasan Hasana and a grant, we have together been able to do a program called Therapy Through Play, which was developed to support parents to build skills and confidence to be able to do therapeutic activities with their children. So, if we think back to the pandemic, which we are still facing today, last year I think was even harder, as we were trying to navigate it, and through the strict times of our lockdown, parents had to sort of become teachers, right? Children reverted to learning virtually online, and I think for parents with children with special needs, they kind of almost had to be their child's therapist, but it's hard. It can be very, very challenging. So we actually piloted the program back in 2019 with the help of our therapy partner, the Energy Source. They're a wonderful bunch of people who have different types of therapists, and who are all sensory integration trained. And that's basically sort of the focus of this, to be able to get yourself to a point of, being regulated and calm, help your sensory processing issues through movement, because we have a gym, right? So right now, the kids have been able to come in, and because we've been working with therapists, and it's been, deemed as essential service, we've been able to have the children come in, with their parents, and be able to learn how to do different activities that can help their child. I mean, if you're familiar with autism, you know it's a spectrum, and people who are autistic are very different, but sensory processing issues are common. They might differ from person to person, from child to child. So sometimes some people may be hyper, too sensitive, or hypo, not enough. They don't experience certain parts of their sensory system as much. And so every child actually has a custom program, and we work to support that. But I'm hoping if things get better and then we get to finish that program successfully, then we'd love to have the gym open again to everyone. It is an inclusive space, ideally for children up to about 12. But if you have some form of special needs, if you are neurodiverse, you are differently abled, there is no age limit really. We'll just help you out and let you know which equipment works best. We're working under very, very tight SOPs. People are not, really, for a long time, we didn't even have families share the gym space. We're doing the best we can. We have booked sessions. We have to clean and sanitize all the time. But, I think it's worth it. I think it's worth it. And I'm really grateful we've been able to do that. Because, yes, Timor was who we absolutely had in mind bringing it over. But we were also thinking of, other families like us. I mean, it's a space that all three of my boys have enjoyed. It's really one of those fun things. And when you're a parent of an autistic child, you can't always bring all the kids together to have fun in the same place, right? I mean, my number 1 and number 3, they play football, but that's not really Timo's sport. But at a place like a gym, it is. I'm glad you felt childlike in there. You're supposed to feel like it's fun and welcoming, and well, I hope that we can create that. Thank you so much for letting me ramble on about my gym. Obviously, it's a passion of mine. I'll be done speaking now.
No, it's good to know that, because it's what is really nice is that you've actually teamed up with other therapists, and to make that gym a place to actually work on the strengths, and to also a fun place that is really lacking in a lot of spaces here. People will just think, okay, if I'm just going to a gym, it's just going to be therapy, and that's that. But I like what you said, where it's a place for the entire family, and so it's really nice. And then you also mentioned about parents, suddenly having to wear all these multiple hats, acting as a therapist, as a teacher, as a mom at home for like the entire day. And one of the things I think that you really emphasize is about parental training. You spoke a lot about parental training in your talks, and things like that. And I really believe that's a really important tool about that. So could you just
Absolutely.
just share a little bit more as to why do you personally feel, as a parent, why is it so important that parents have to be trained and skilled, so that they are equipped to actually deal with your child or the children?
Well, I think both Kari and I believe that parent education in general was very important. I mean, we attended parent workshops since Jibril was born, and he's number one. Timo wasn't even in the picture then. I think it's going to be, probably the most important job of your life. If you have kids, the biggest responsibility. Hopefully it also is the one that brings you the biggest amount of joy, but I kind of don't think we're necessarily always prepared for it. There's obviously the love and all the good intentions, but I just as if you approach anything else, I think it would be good to prepare yourself. Also, while I have my wonderful stepmom and my mother-in-law, our godmother, and a wonderful support system, I was missing my mother. She passed on before I had any of my children, so I felt, I think I could do with a little bit more knowledge. So when Timur came along, it became even more important for us, and that was one of the pieces of advice that I got after his diagnosis. From a developmental pediatrician, and that's also sort of one of my pieces of advice when I speak to new parents. I do talk to them about getting yourself some training, getting yourself educated, and there are opportunities to do that now. It's been amazing, extra amazing in April. I mean, even NASOM was doing it, which is great. We've had people, different organizations, schools, centers, everybody offering, free webinars, more information, parent support, kid support. Timur has been going to a wonderful center called Oasis Place for a few years now. So apart from the Energy Source, who are my gym partners, that's another place that really believes in helping, again, to support parents with their skills, right? When you have a child with differences, it's important to understand sort of the whole picture. And the whole picture is what makes them the same. Still your child, somebody who's, a person, a human being, uniquely human, perhaps, for me to, borrow the title of Barry Prezant's book, but, a person, and you need to understand all of that. And then you need to know how they're different as well, because you want to be able to support them, right? Common issues with people who are autistic, social communication skills and issues. They have resistance to change is difficult. They can be, somewhat rigid. Many of them engage in repetitive behavior, and that can come out verbally through speech, or that can come out through actions and things like that. And, you want to have a good understanding of them so that they also can, fulfill their potential. They also can be in a good enough space to be able to learn, right? Like any other kid, to be able to enjoy what there is of the world. And so I think it's important that we know, because they are different. They are different, and it's important to understand that. I go back to again about any child, right? We found out that my oldest guy, he's not autistic or anything, but he happens to be a kinesthetic and tactile learner. Most of us are auditory or visual. There's only, I think, less than 20% of people in the world who are kind of like that, and we had to understand that to then be able to support him, right? Because he learns by, I got to experience it. I have to move around. I have to touch things, and moving for him. And I kind of realized for me a little bit actually helps me focus a little bit better. Whereas before, the older, traditional wisdom was like, okay, sit still. When you're sitting still, you can focus, pay attention to me, look at me, sit still. But it doesn't work for some people, you can't, it doesn't work for some people. Some people, if they move, they'll be able to focus better. They can process better. They can, listen and interact with you. So, yeah, I completely believe that, parent training is very, very important. And that's actually part of how we do the Therapy Through Play program at the gym right now. We have parent workshops as well. We want parents to feel supported. Like if we cannot, let's say for whatever reason, we cannot continue this program, or we get into, again, who knows now, the world is so unexpected. If we get into another sort of strict lockdown, then what are they going to be able to do at home? So they've been equipped with a gym ball. A gym ball is really great, easy to buy, affordable piece of equipment. And you can do so many things with it, from calming to strengthening activities to working on your, balance, which is related to the vestibular system, working on, your joint sense, which is all the proprioceptive stuff. there are things that can be done. And if you arm yourself with this information, then hopefully it will be a little bit better for you to navigate, manage, things for your kid. And finally, your kid's going to be at home more than anybody else. So you kind of have to be a therapist a little bit, taking the very general, usage of the word.
As it just reminded me of the saying, parents are your child's first teachers. And then also I remember I use this in my talks a lot about what your late mother said. She said children are like a white piece of cloth. It's the designs that you actually put on them. So what you're saying now is that when parents are trained, when they're equipped, and they are the ones who can actually mold a child and put all these designs on them, so that when they go to their therapies and things like that, they can speak with their therapist and say, hey, this is my child. And I would also like to know what your husband said in one of his talks. He says it's not about the diagnosis defining you, it's about the child's strength, which you have just said it very, very nicely about your oldest son and the way he learns and how you looked at it as his strength, and you've actually developed it. So I think that is what a lot of parents must actually look at, and don't compare one child to another child, because as my mom will say, all your 5 fingers are different, so how can you start comparing them?
Yeah, that's true. I like that analogy. I don't think I've heard that one before. Thank you. 5 fingers on the hand. Yep, you all belong to the hand. You're definitely different and have different purposes to some degree. But no, for sure, the parent training, and then that working from your child's strength, it really is very important to remember all the things that somebody is able to do, even if there's a disability in certain areas, right? And we all have, just many people have, some form of whatever disability, right? I mean, I need glasses or contact lenses. I can't really see. Without them, I don't really function. It's just that we need to understand a little bit better for those, with like hidden disabilities. That's a description from that amazing new effort that MAHB has done at KLIA. Super excited for that one. But like when you don't, with a physical disability, it's a bit easier to understand because you can see it. So if somebody is on a wheelchair, then there is this understanding that they cannot, or have difficulty walking, for example. So we've been able to make accommodations. Things could always be better, but to a large degree of making buildings accessible, things like that. But when the issue is, there's a condition that's related to the mind and your brain, and it's internal, it's inside there somewhere. It's not as easy to understand, right? It manifests itself in terms of behaviors and things like that. But that doesn't make it any less real. You would never go up to a person who is, vision impaired and say, can you see this? Can you look? I mean, you would never do that. So when you have a child, you're with a person who's autistic and you're forcing or expecting them to do something, it's kind of the same, really. You shouldn't, right? And that can only come from a place of understanding and appreciating that. But again, the brain that works differently is also going to be a brain that can do, other things. It can look at the world, differently and show you that. And for some, not all children who are autistic, but some autistic children, they have a higher capacity to do certain things that your average typical brain does not, right? So there's trade-offs from these things. So yes, thank you for bringing up the point about working from strengths. I think we sometimes forget. I mean, I've completely been guilty of that myself. We're always trying to help Timo work on, there's some very clear and obvious areas that he needs help and support with, that you sometimes get distracted from, the things that he can do. He's, my godmother reminded me, he says, in one of your talks, you didn't talk about how, Puma is such a good artist and he's got clear talent there, drawing all the perfect straight lines, being able to see perspective. And I said, yeah, so I'm guilty of that too. Sometimes we just keep thinking about, okay, this is the one that needs work. We really need to help him for this. And then, you got to acknowledge from that part. And if you can build on the strengths, they're happy, they build confidence, and confidence is such a huge piece to be able to help you with so many other parts in your life, right? That self-esteem, confidence, that's really, really important. And that's not so easy to build.
power of observation. Teachers and parents have to actually have it. If you don't have it, it's going to be a big challenge for your child to actually go through the entire system, and then you have actually conditioned him or her to be in a certain manner, and you don't want to identify or look at the strengths. Yeah. When
Yeah.
when was it that you thought or you saw something different in your son Timur, and please tell us your journey after that.
Okay, so I think we first noticed at 2.5 that he was different. He was somewhat withdrawn. He didn't really make eye contact. It was one of those descriptions you hear often about him being in his own world. I think in the family we were a little bit already sort of aware of typically developing milestones, right? Because my niece has Down syndrome, so we already had a amazing neurodiverse individual as part of our family. So yeah, I remember specifically also speaking to my sister-in-law about it. It's like, how come there's something going on there, right? And around that same time, a little sort of reading center, wonderful mother and daughter team, teacher May, teacher Erica together. He had been going there as sort of like kind of somehow I had a sense that he was maybe not ready for a full preschool or a kindergarten, but it's a space that my brother's kids, a lot of people I knew had gone to, and they support early literacy for both math and reading, and Timo was going there, and they around that time they asked to speak to me, and they said, your son is definitely different. Said, we don't really use labels, nor are we in a position to diagnose, but you might want to look into it. He is not typical. He's a different kind of kid. We have, we feel that it's a responsibility to share that with you. We're okay to still have him with us, but I think, you kind of need to have an awareness or know a little bit better about what he's like, right? So initially we were like, okay, let's observe. What could it be? Do we try other things? But a few months down the line, and then he turned 3 at his 3rd birthday, where we had like a party. It was crystal clear how different he was from all the other kids. They were all busy playing, doing whatever. He decided to hang out in one little corner. There was a little play slide there, and that's all he wanted to do. Slide up and down, up and down, up and down. I don't know how many times. Just, oblivious of everything else, seeming to just want to do his own thing. So I first reached out to our pediatrician, the same, doctor who's still all my boys' doctor. And I said, I think I need some help. This is where we're going. So he said, why don't, I help refer you to a developmental pediatrician? Because not all pediatricians are necessarily equipped. They can definitely help to screen. From my understanding, that was a really good initiative that Ministry of Health did, together with everyone. If I'm not mistaken, I think NASOM was, perhaps part of that as well a few years ago. So they can screen, but not all physicians can diagnose. There are certain criteria and qualifications and things that you need to go through for a diagnosis. So we managed to get an appointment, and then we went to see Dr. Regini, and that was it. Somehow I don't know, maybe my brain had already kind of gone to the A word at that time, so I wasn't actually shocked. I'm not sure what the word would be, but it was still, of course, a huge deal, but we kind of immediately got into action mode. That's what it was like for me and Kyrie. And then we were very, very fortunate and blessed for a supportive family who we didn't have to go through the denial per se, or somebody going, no, what do you mean? He's absolutely perfect. None of that happened, with the family. The family was just like also in action mode. It's like, okay, what do you need? What do we do? Where should we go? Like it was things like that, and kind of all the support sort of kicked in, and we started everything: speech therapy, occupational therapy, started looking for early intervention, like everything. And then what happened was, I think it was at least a year later or so, when I kind of had to go through my second, well, for me, well, like a second level of acceptance. And Carrie also had his own process when one day it actually hit me that this was, lifelong. It was in all likeliness lifelong. Not like one of those things where you do this, you do this, you do this, get all the therapies into place, make all of the effort, and then things will be fine. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work. It's constant work. There are different phases of everything. Timur is going through puberty now. Puberty is hard. I think puberty is hard on any person. But then you have puberty in the pandemic. Then you have puberty in the pandemic and you're autistic. The layers of that are like, wow. So at different phases, different things, will coming. It will come in, and it's ongoing, right? So yeah, we're still on this journey. It's a 9-year journey now. It's been amazing. But yeah, a lot of it's a roller coaster, right? I mean, it's already very exciting to be a parent, I think, of any child, and then we have this extra layer when you've got an autistic kid.
What are your thoughts, for Nori, about you were saying that as soon as you discovered that Timur was different, and you seek the advice of the various therapists, and you were not in denial. You and your family were not in denial, and a very strong keyword, you said that your support system was wonderful. It was great.
Oh yes. Yeah.
But a lot of families out there, a lot of mothers out there, as soon as they find out that their child has been diagnosed with autism, the blame is on them, and they go through grief, and sometimes it takes them a very long time to be in that period, and they've actually missed out on that moment where they should be actually working with their child to be on the child's recovery path, or on the child's pathway towards managing the condition better. What can you tell mothers or fathers out there who have been in denial, who don't know what to do, thinking this is the entire world has just crushed down upon us now? What do? We don't have enough resources, we don't have enough support system. What would you tell them, Nori? How can they cope better?
Okay, so the shock and the grief and the process of grieving is actually really important, because something very big has happened to you. I mean, it's life-changing enough to have a child, and then when things become completely unexpected, that is a whole nother level, right? So I think it is important to feel it, and that was probably part of that second part I was saying, the second bit of acceptance, because we were so in action mode, right? We were really like, let's go, and maybe that whole process happened later. It is important to happen at some point in time. Now, you certainly don't want to end up being, stuck in that place, right? Stuck in the place of sadness and of feeling despair and things like that. Maybe if I can share this little story. So it's fairly well known amongst community of, people with children with special needs. It was actually written by a lady who was a mother of somebody with Down syndrome. And I think her name was Kingsley, and it kind of goes like this. Her little analogy about coping and coming to acceptance of a special child was about how, okay, so let's say you are planning a trip, and the story goes that there's this whole big plan to go to Italy, and it's going to be super exciting, and you read all the books and you find out everything, and you plan your itinerary, and you're so excited about going to Italy. Then you finally get to go on your journey, and you get on the plane, and then you land, and suddenly the announcement comes, welcome to Holland. And you're like, what? So it's like, wait a second, no, I'm supposed to go to Italy. But then you've discovered you've landed somewhere completely different. So it's, it's not at all as you've planned. So, and then the story continues to go that and it ends by finally saying, don't spend too much time grieving over the loss of Italy that you forget to look at what could be amazing and wonderful and awesome about Holland. Because you're stuck at not having been able to have Italy, which was your plan A. I know it's not a great analogy per se, because that's like a trip, right? You go from one trip to another trip, but and there are days when it is so incredibly hard, and you think of other things perhaps to support you. I mean, if you're a person of faith, of course that's very helpful, but I think the main message to say is that this is what life has brought, and it's not really something you can change, right? So make the best of it. I mean, this is what we have to do. You make the best of it, and the sooner you get around to doing it, as you said, then you can avail yourself of opportunities and windows. The good news is that we know now that there's neuroplasticity for the brain, right? This is fairly recent. This is very recent, in terms of, the science of the brain, but we know this is true, and you can go on to learn for sure. But it is also a little easier to do certain things when you're young, right? When you're little, and if you get the chance to do some kind of early intervention or to support your child with therapies from when they're like age 2, 3, 4, 5, these are, opportunities, just as they are with typically developing children. So much happens at this phase, right? So don't deprive your child of that. Your child is entitled to an education. Your child has a right to all the other things that, a special child has the same right as your other children, as typical children out there. And, there's so many things. I mean, if we look, to, other aspects of like our Asian culture, there's a little story, I think, from, it's an ancient Chinese proverb about this guy who lost a horse. And the story goes that he lost the horse, he lost his horse, and then his neighbors are like, oh, I'm, so sorry for you, a terribly sad thing to happen. And he's like, I don't know if it's a good or bad thing. And then suddenly a couple of days later, the horse comes back and brings another horse. So it's like, wow, I get another horse, Then suddenly the neighbors go, well, actually, that was a stroke of luck. And he goes, yeah, but I don't know, I'm not sure, right? He doesn't make a judgment, good or bad. But it's neighbor either giving him, condolences or congratulations or whatever. And then what happens after that is his son was riding the new horse and then falls, injured, breaks his leg or something. So something happens as a consequence of that. And of course, again, what happens is messages of condolences like, oh no, your poor son, and things. And the guy reacts the same way. He says, he reacts the same way. I think what's Se Wong or something, according to legend, is his name. And then the last bit of the story goes that the imperial army comes to the village, and they're recruiting young men to go to war. But guess what? His son doesn't have to go because his leg is injured, so he doesn't have to go to war and potentially near certain death. So that's the other thing to consider, right? Sometimes you don't know what life is bringing you, and you get something that is good and in abundance. And how do you know that is that is like a reward or good karma or something? What if it's a test? And what if something that looks, you don't know what to make of it? It might be challenging, but that might be it's a blessing in disguise, essentially, right? It could be a blessing in disguise. So I know. Yes, it's hard if you're going through this right now and it's all a shock for you. You are entitled absolutely to all those feelings, and you need to recognize and go through that. Go through it, not avoid it, not go over anything, but go through it and come out that other side. But don't take too long. Your kid needs you, and it can be okay, because it's up to your mindset, and do reach out for support. If you don't have that extended family, you don't know where to go, there's no experience. I mean, there are wonderful groups like NASOM is of course active online, but there's also another amazing group, biggest autism community is Persatuan Autism Malaysia. They have a huge group there. And I think you should actually reach out for help, from your own friends and things like that. Teach them about autism. They need to know so that they can help you. I'm so grateful for opportunities like this and all the other talks and different things we hear in Autism Month, because that helps to normalize this thing, right? We don't like to use the word normal and not normal for a kid, with differences or disabilities. It's part of the human condition to have these things. There's nothing abnormal about it. We kind of try not to use those words, and we say things like typical or not typical to talk about the majority versus people who are differently abled. But we want to keep, having these things to build that sort of awareness. And awareness is just the beginning. We actually need to push on. We need to talk about the acceptance and that appreciation and finally the inclusion. It's really, really important. So hopefully as this becomes, something that is normalized and it's no longer taboo, then parents might not feel that it's so hard, right? It may help to lessen the difficulty and the pain somewhat, and also knowing and understanding out there that there's a community and that there's support for you and people get it. Don't worry, you are not alone, right? Then it will help more. So these things are good. We need to do more and more of these things, getting information out there about what it's like.
Right. One needs to be mindful of the situation and to see before it affects your own mental health, and then you go through a different phase altogether. And then coping with the family and the child is going to be a bigger task for you, and you would have actually missed out on a lot of things where in that interim period, I feel, if you don't deal. What inspires you when you think of, I'm sorry. What inspires you when you think about your 3 boys?
My kids?
Yes.
Okay, well, sometimes they're all monster creatures, but if if I really sit down and think about it, I think our oldest guy, he's an angel. Really, he's an angel. Timur is a blessing. I tell people all the time that I think at the end of it, Timur will give us so much more than we can ever give him. I don't know how, but that is what my gut tells me. Timur is just a blessing. And number 3, Rafe is a gift. He was a complete surprise. I think my first trimester was pretty much over, and then suddenly it was like, you're pregnant. What? So, gift is precious. It's like a surprise. It's great. And, the 3 of them, you brought up the thing about the hand. You completely, understand how, the kids are, you wonder, how are these kids so different and they all come from the same place? But they really are, just personality wise. And, you look at the kids, and kids now, they still have, and my kids are relatively young. I mean, our oldest is only 13. And, I think, that young, that's still that whole, everything is a wonder, sense of idealism, looking at things, through their eyes is really, really great. I remember my kids couldn't even, they couldn't even differentiate actually races. We did a little test. We were asking them who's Uncle Mahin, who's Uncle Iskandar, who's Indian? And he's like, what? What does that mean? I don't know, and those, it's nice. It's nice to have that, right? They see things as they are, and I think kids are, for me, probably the biggest motivations, in your life, right? Amongst the top motivations of your life as well. You suddenly realize that, wow, you need to work hard and try to be the best version of yourself you possibly can. Not for your own sake. You never thought about it before. It's because now you have, brought these people into the world. So they push me. They push us to do better, and you want the world to be better for them, right? That's why we do all these things that we do. And if we find something that's not quite there, then what do? I'm grateful, I'm fortunate to be part of a family that believes that you can absolutely create a world, do something about any situation. Every individual can make a difference. So if you feel that something was not there or not available for you or not quite right, well, go ahead and make it happen. Why don't you make it happen? That sort of happened with the airport as well. So the wonderful people at MAHB decided it was going to be that they were going to take on board, and they were going to make this great initiative to be friendly for every type of person who has a hidden disability, right? We were there together, right? But it kind of the spark of that was my dear friend, a girlfriend of mine, decided to just approach the office of the chairman of MAHB at the time. And she just told herself, what can I lose, right? I'm just going to present this idea, and they'll say, if they say no, that's the worst thing that can happen. But she went for it. And, chairman at the time, Tan Sri Zainun, decided, this is worthwhile, this is worth looking into. And she got her team to look into it. And this was 2019. And look now, 2021, Malaysia, first in the region to provide this whole slew of services. So bless you, Anit. I don't know if you're listening, but you made it happen. And it was just, one person who decided, I'm going to open my mouth. I'm going to ask, I'm going to see, because she had experienced how amazing Heathrow Airport was in terms of the services, right? With the lanyard to support everybody, knew what was going on. And now guess what? Malaysia's got it too. It's awesome.
Yeah, butterfly effect. And I like what you said about seeing things as they are, and that's exactly going back to your gym, where you say everyone is welcome there, and you also spoke about early intervention, and so when children see other children who are different from them, they would just see them as they are. So I think that's a perfect place, because play. And I also remember, as you were speaking, one of the things that actually caught my attention when I was speaking to your aunt, there was this very nice label at the back of where I was seated, and it read like that: finally a place where you never have to say I'm sorry. It is not just a slogan. And and that is really, really meaningful. Listening to you, why should you be sorry for the way you are? You have no control the way you are. You are actually created like that. So so I think that is really, really important. And your gym is a perfect place where everybody can actually meet. And I know Joanna as well from Energy Source, and she does a lot of good things. And as a matter of fact,
amazing.
A month ago she did Messy Play with one of our NASOM centers actually, and the kids really had a good time. They really had a good time, and teachers also had a good time. They were actually sharing.
It's all sensory stuff, right? It's great.
Exactly. So I'd like to actually go back to the African proverb. It takes a village to raise a child, and
it does.
And the collaborations, and your friend actually approaching Malaysian airports and doing these things, and it just shows that you can't do things alone. We need partnerships to actually to actually make things happen for the betterment of children. And I also remember some time ago I saw this advertisement where We Rock the Spectrum. They were actually giving free services to kids in the B40 group, which you had mentioned earlier. I called them up actually, and I said, can kids of our NASOM actually go? And they said yes, they can go and things like that. But sadly, MCO came about, and things just didn't happen, and things like that. But just want to say thank you for giving this wonderful opportunity to kids who would otherwise not being able to actually experience places like this. It's like they can't even think about affording to go here like that. So kudos to you and to Kazana Foundation, you said, for this great sponsorship. And I have one last question for you before we take questions from our viewers. How do you juggle yourself, being such a strong advocate, being a mom, and such an influential person in society? How do you do this?
I think I sometimes don't juggle well at all. I'm just trying like anybody else. I think we there's going to be some days which are good and all the things that you've planned and tried to organize go well, and then some days it doesn't, but then you like pray or try to get some sleep, and you start fresh the next day. You can only do the best that you can. After having Timur, and going through all manner of different things like therapies, counseling sessions and stuff like that with him, I've discovered my own tics on the spectrum for sure. I have some of those executive functioning related things as well. It's not easy. Sequencing is hard. The whole timing and organizing thing is also difficult. But I think you try the best you can, but it goes back to like what you said. You can't do things alone. I think everybody has a chance to make a difference, but you don't do it by yourself, right? So you need you need a support system. I'm really grateful and fortunate to be working with great people. Like the guys at the gym are awesome. They've really been the ones that have mostly been hands-on supporting the parents, our 43 families. I've got another social enterprise called Kita Kita, where we, support local artisans and support craftsmanship that is traditional, but with like a modern twist. But again, there's like good people. There's a team, and of course, family. Couldn't do anything without family support, really. So you've got to reach out for that help when you can, and you should speak up and actually say, hey, I could do with some support. And then maybe for those of you out there who might know some families or something, do something simple. I saw a video this month for Autism Awareness where the family was like, well, maybe just go invite that parent out for coffee or something. It can feel a bit lonely, right? If you've suddenly been going through all this and you don't happen to know any other parents in your shoes, you don't have maybe a big extended family support or something. But there are people out there who are great. I have I have another mom friend whose name is Desiree. She kicked off this initiative called Project Hans, and Hans is her son. And who's also autistic, but she's decided to make it her mission to support other parents out there who might be going through what she is. So there are things, there are more things now. I think even in the last 5 years alone, there are more things available to parents as options. School will always be a challenging thing, and I hope that we continue to do better. But it's not like Malaysia is particularly behind. This is a struggle for many countries around the world in terms of what can be done to support people who are differently abled. It's still a journey, but we have seen improvement over the years, and I think it can only happen more and more as we get to have conversations like this, right? To talk about it and more people find out, and who knows, that there's another person out here who maybe somebody's listening and will go and do the next cool thing after the airport. I don't know. I'll put it out there to ask for people to consider. If anybody listening, is there something you could do within your own life, your own context, to help the community? That would be amazing. And like I say, it doesn't have to be a big thing. It can be a small thing. Have a conversation with somebody after you watch this, right? And see if that person knows anything about autism. Or it could be something else. Maybe you are an employer. Potentially you could be employing neurodiverse people. And that's a difficult one. That's the other huge transition after school to talking about employment. And that's connected to, making a living and any chance of independence at all. It's a tough one. It's a big one. And all these areas need more, more things need to happen.
Yeah, we like the expertise actually in areas like this. And if you look at the current situation now, it's the families who are doing it, and the people who are not directly connected. Yes, there is sympathy, there is empathy, but like what you said, everyone out there can make a difference. So it's up to us now to actually, put on our armor, go out there and say, hey, you know what? Like your friend, knocking on the door and saying, hey,
Yeah.
I want to make a difference, and this is what I can do. Yeah. So thank you so much for being real, for being authentic, and a lot of families out there say, "Oh, it's Puan Nori, so it's going to be on a different on a different conversation." I said, end of the day, she's a mother, and she
Mm.
feels like how all mothers feel. She has a son under the spectrum, and she's going to be talking to us on that grounds. So so we really appreciate this. Our team at NASOM really feels very nice that you are speaking to us, and we'll just see if there are any questions. We've gone above time. I hope it is okay with you, Bonori. I'm really sorry about this. It's just that when you get engaged in intimate conversations like this, it's just so much you can actually talk about. So would you have some time where we can take maybe two questions?
Sure. I'm okay if you are, Anne. Are you okay?
I'm good. Yeah. I hope
Okay.
Julie.
All right. Yeah. Oh,
So
there we go.
yeah. So you can read it. Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Suresh wants to know, how did we identify Timor's skills and talents, and how do you work on building these skills and talents now? Okay. We are still very, very much working on trying to figure out how to build on the skills and talents. Okay, he definitely has strength in art. There is something there. He's got an eye. He's able to see, as I said, like perspective. He's just the way he looks at things. He's already got a developed style. His fine motor skills are really amazing. There's stuff he can do that well, I can't really do, and other people, and there's things that like he plays Minecraft, that game online, and he can kind of build stuff, and sometimes it looks like he's building it backwards, and you flip it around because it's 3D, and it's correct the other way. I don't know how he does that. I think the identifying the skills and stuff like that, you and spoke about it in a sense, that the need to be observant, to be mindful, to make that effort. I've also heard of it being described as you needing to be a detective, especially if your child has difficulty expressing themselves, and Timor is definitely one of those kids. So you need to always be looking out for it, right? You have to look out for what makes them happy, what are their interests, and keep exposing your kid to as many number of things as you can, is definitely is what you would with a typical child. I don't think you should feel that your kid who's different needs to be overly protected or suddenly doesn't have any of these opportunities at all. I mean, it's there. It's possible. Like one of the other things that Timor got to do was rock climb, and climbing, amazing for all that joint sense, right? The proprioceptive thing, and like strength and heavy body work. And he took to it, and I don't know how he climbed up so high. Fortunately, he doesn't have any height issues. But I think you have to take the time to observe, and again, don't just focus on all the things that need help and work and support, all the harder, challenging areas. See what else there is. And what we're doing now, we're still in this right now, having conversations with therapists, teachers, school, and how do we build more from the strength. I mean, it's an opportunity for him to be more with typical peers when, he can do things like art and stuff like that. But recognizing also that there might be something there, we need to push it up. I'm only just about to start talking to, one or two artists I've met recently and art teachers who have experience with, children with special needs. If anybody has a suggestion for me, I'd love to hear that, for our family. But we're still working on it.
Interesting, Ponori, because you keep on reinforcing about that partnership and to have those various conversations to actually get the maximum result for that particular child. which
Yeah.
I think we must actually, remind ourselves sometimes, with our teachers and with our therapists, that constant communication is so important, because it's
Oh
every
my
day.
God. Yes.
Yeah. And
No, and
interest.
it's a team approach. It's a multidisciplinary approach. I think for most children, you're not going to find that golden formula. Somebody will come and tell you, this therapy is the best, this one is the best. But first, you've got to find the fit for your kid. That was what's going to determine what's the best, not necessarily like the data or whatever associated with that thing, right? And you probably have to try a whole bunch of things, and you probably have to do things in combination. And it still might not be right, or it'll work great for a year, and then all of a sudden it's like, why is this not working anymore? So it's always in collaboration, the communication, that piece, finding different people to work together with you, get your teachers and therapists to talk to each other. If you can. And I think more and more people are looking at that, collaborative approach. And generally, this is now seen as an important skill, right, for any human being. We don't talk about these soft skills anymore. I hated that description. It was terrible. It's such a critical skill to be able to communicate effectively. It's such an important skill to be able to get along with people and work in a team. Why do you talk about these things? And these were the things that determined whether people got a job or not. Right? So now they're recognizing how important these skills are, and how important it is to develop things like empathy, right? And empathy is like a higher order thinking skill. You've got to work at it. Not everybody is inclined that way, but you can, learn that as a skill. You can keep going. You can build your empathy muscle, and it's super important right now, because it's something that makes you put yourself into the perspective and have a sense of someone else, right? So it's not just, oh yeah, I kind of feel sorry if he looks bad or whatever, but it's be able to take that other step further, right? To then go, wow, what must you be going through right now, and how can I, what can I do, right? How can I help? So many things, so many different things that have to come together. And yes, it should always be a collaborative approach.
As what you were saying just now, as to how Timur will actually build things, and how he could actually do it in different ways, and these are skills that architects have. So
Maybe.
so if
Yeah.
you were to look at it on that level, and he's already got it there. So if you actually want to dwell on it further, okay, these are his strengths, and then maybe at a certain age, if it's still there, I'm going to be focusing my path on him along that line, because he will work on, something
Who
like
knows?
that.
Maybe, right?
Strength. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, technical drawings. That was one of the things I thought about as well. That's related. You're going even bigger. Architect. Yeah, why not? Architect.
Exactly. Why not? As you said just now, uniquely you see. So yeah, unique in that sense. Yeah. Let's see if we have another question from anyone. Okay, there's another question here.
What do parents with autistic kids, I guess, expect from other people in terms of reaction and response when their kids throw tantrums in public or barge onto or hit other kids? So we can act proper and supportive, so they will feel, oh, what a kind question. Thank you so much. So I think she's asking, what would be the best way to help out if we see a situation where a child has had a meltdown or something has happened and you are, nearby, or you're observing, and if you can support. Okay. First, if you're not very certain or very sure, then one of the best things you can do is just, not stare and like judge and, be one of those like, that's not helpful. So if you can't really do anything, then doing nothing actually is better than drawing attention to something of which you have no ability or intention to help. That, please don't do that. Now, if you can, if you're able to, or if you're able to communicate, if there's a grown-up nearby, usually there's a parent struggling, probably shopping bags there somewhere, the kid has decided to bergolek-golek, lying on the ground, you can sort of carefully approach the parent and say, if you're willing to help, then you should say that, right? Say, is there something I can help you with? looks like you're having some difficulty, right? Rather than assume super naughty child or terrible parent or whatever, if you start to recognize that there was a meltdown, and a meltdown means there was no control. It's usually some kind of trigger, like a sensory overload, right? Too much noise, too much people. You're feeling so overwhelmed, you're anxious and stressed, and for many kids, my son definitely included, you just kind of fall apart. Whereas a tantrum is something where the child is kind of still making a choice, like I'm going to act out and I'm going to see if I can get what I want. Now, an autism meltdown, like when you see something like that happening, it's that it's usually the back of the brain has kicked in. That's the fight, flight, survival mode. It's not the frontal lobe where you make these rational decisions. They just can't help it. So if you can reach out to the parent and say, is there something I can help you with? Maybe I'll hold your bag, something that you need. So I think asking the grown-up is definitely a good one. And really see how you go from there. And they might just be like, well, if you could just give me some space, or if you could help me, and go with that. But yeah, if you're not certain, you don't think you can, then really sort of, just tell everybody, look, it's okay, let's move on. Maybe they just need some space. Sometimes not doing anything is not a bad thing at all, because you're not standing there in judgment. You're not gathering attention to something that is obviously difficult and painful. When you have, as I said, no ability or intention of helping, then don't do anything, right? Rather than, be around there. But that is, I really appreciate that question, because I tell you, when that happens, and that kind of happens in public, you feel everything, right? You start to feel that guilt, that frustration, that despair, that whatever. And those are the things. And that's why Anne was talking about that slogan, our wonderful We Rock founder, Dina Kimmel. She came up with that because she had spent so much time with her own kid. Like, you go to a restaurant, your kid behaves funny, and you're like, oh, I'm sorry, please excuse me, he's autistic, he's different, I'm sorry. And it's like, you really feel sorry when you see your kid fall apart, right? And it's hard. So yes, if there could be a little bit of support, and there have been, like, I've heard so many nice little stories, like kids in waiting rooms falling apart, and the kindness of strangers means a lot. Come up and say, or like, okay, let me look after your other kid so you can focus on this kid. Because sometimes the situation is with a family, right? Or a mother's there with two kids, and one of them is falling apart, but the other one can't just be left alone either. So take the kind of compassionate, common sense approach. And if there's a willingness to do that, I think really that's all that's needed, just the willingness to help and support. Thank you so much. I'm really grateful for that question.
Yeah, thank you for that answer, Nori. And one of the things NASOM did, actually, we have got cards that we actually give it to our families, and the card says, I have autism. So it's not a bad behavior, and things like that. So perhaps that could be a suggestion as well. At the same time, you're also advocating and educating those who don't know.
Yeah, that works out. I think that visual, kind of thing, and it's like, give me a little more patience, right? It's like the lanyard we got at the airport that day, right? Yes. So yes, for sure. Every little bit can potentially help, of course.
Nori, do you have any last things to actually tell all the audience there? We have a lot of people watching us. I think we almost reached like 200 odd people actually viewing this. Do you have something that you want to say to them?
Thank you for your time. It's precious Friday night. Wow, that's a lot of people. Now I'm nervous. I was just looking at you, Anne, and now there's other people. No, I am a very proud Malaysian. I feel like diversity is really part of the Malaysian DNA. I think we've had this, where we have been placed geographically, our history, everything, all the way back from the 13th, 14th century, and being between the trade routes of two huge civilizations, and this whole history of a melting pot of so many things, right? Different ethnicities, cultures, religion, you name it. I do believe that is a strength of ours, and I really think that is one of the things that has allowed a relatively small country like Malaysia to punch above its weight in certain areas. Yeah, of course we have ways to improve and to go, but one of the strengths that we do have as Malaysians is this diversity. And I think that neurodiversity, which is basically, the brain working differently, being wired differently, is just another layer to that. I'm hopeful that we get to harness that too, and we become a society truly that we embrace these things, that we actually recognize that differences are good for us. We truly learn from each other. I mean, there's even one of the verses in the Quran supports that, is that even God has declared and has told us that we were created of different people and different kinds, so that we may know each other, get to know each other and learn. And I'm so hopeful that we'll get to that point of embracing this next part, because again, awareness is just that, beginning to understand, but we really need to move on to that acceptance and then that appreciation of recognizing that it is to the benefit of everyone that we have people who are different with us, right? And then, have that inclusion. And really, you'll find that speak to anyone who not just as a member of the family, but knows somebody with that, work with somebody who's autistic, or any kind of person who's differently abled, and they'll come away and tell you how much more that they've gotten from it, right? So it's not just about be kind and compassionate and help out people who are autistic. Hey, listen, this is like an opportunity for you, and all the research and data now, in terms of even like at the level of organizations and things like that, support how you need to be diverse, right? You need to have men and women and different cultures and different things and everything, and they all bring something different to the table. It's there for children, typical children, the opportunity to mentor, to lead, right? To build these kind of skills of handling these sorts of situations. And then we talked about, I mentioned the thing about, empathy being so important. I mean, you don't get to do this if you don't confront situations where somebody's, going through a hard time, or you're challenged and you have to figure it out. And of course, then, you get to help and support the person who needs it. And I think when we create an environment for anybody, really, not just because they're differently abled, but if we support environments where every person can thrive and be who they are, and we accept and recognize people, for that, and they can, be in a good place, right? Comfortable, confident, happy, they have dignity, and they can thrive, it'll just really all be better. So I'm really, really hoping for that, to anybody listening. Obviously, this is a dream of all parents. For us, it's completely, completely personal. But we're trying to make a plea to tell everybody that, the world being colorful and different is a good thing for us all. And I'm hoping, if anything, people will perhaps kind of hear that message, and maybe like back to my little ask to consider something that you could do, your own life, your own context, anything that you can do to make it a little bit better. That would be so great. That would be just amazing.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time, Nori, for your commitment, and your commitment towards your son Timur, and for all kids on the spectrum, and kids of different ability. And I'd just like to actually take something from your conversation today. It's more like telling everyone out there, see the ability in disability. And with that, I'd like to say good night to you and enjoy the rest of your day.
Selamat malam. Terima kasih, Anne.
Thank you,
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nori.
Good night.
Sorry, we went above time, Nori. I hope